I don't remember exactly what happened in the movie Inception,
Hmm.
but in my mind, what what we talked about in next week's episode, people will get to listen to, involved involves a topic about Doge that we said or will be saying at the time of next week, something about it that may have changed since. Long story short, we pre-recorded next week's episode and we talked about something that we thought would be fairly timeless. Not really, but we acknowledged that it wasn't really timeless. And then a news item pulled up recently and I was like, okay. I'm Phil Royle. I'm one of the co-hosts here along with Ed, who I don't think has spoken yet, but he's here and you could see him at youtube.com/@the-watt-car. You can see me there too. You can subscribe to us there. You can ring the bell icon and do whatever it is that you want to do. You can comment and then you can unsubscribe and then resubscribe and then tell your friends on all the social medias and things like that. I have been doing content creation for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 20 years. And been trying to sell you t-shirts at thewattcar.com/store that help support the blog and the podcast.
Ed Sanchez. Oh, he speaks. Um, I'll go 10 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation, day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and the Watt Car co-founder and contributor.
So like I said, we pre-recorded next week's episode and we did it right before we recorded this week's episode. One of the topics that we talk about next week, or have talked about next week, if you will, is Elon Musk and Doge. And you will mention that, that maybe this is only entertaining to me, that the clock might be running out on Elon Musk's affiliation with the US government because he's a special government employee or whatever the designation is. He gets 130 days and it depends on how you clock it and yada, yada, yada. Apparently, in an article that I was just reading today, Trump and his administration is beginning to separate themselves from Elon and he will be on the out very soon. So that may or may not happen in the time for next week's episode, where we did talk about, or will talk about, or have talked about that situation. So keep that in mind when you listen to next week's episode, because, we're pre-recording that for a reason. We cannot be here to talk about that in person. Yeah. So you've just got to roll the dice on some content, and that's what we've done.
Yeah. I mean, long story short, and again, I don't know if maybe I'm talking on a completely different plane from where you were going, but my understanding is Trump and Elon don't exactly see eye to eye in this tariff situation. And Elon, among other people in his sphere, have kind of said, this is crazy and BS. And this is going to throw a giant wrench into the whole global
Elon Musk is getting pressure from all sides, I'm sure, because he's a derelict CEO for 7 companies, something like that. And meanwhile, he's going off making very hardcore political statements that any normal CEO of publicly traded companies would never make in a million years. They're fireable offenses because you are putting the company at risk for not making profit, and your responsibility is the fiduciary. I've lost the words, but for your company to do well. That's you have a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders.
Work in the interest of the shareholders,
yes,
basically.
And
for a public company.
Yeah. Yes, and he is very derelict in that duty, as is obvious. It's just look at the shares, the stocks. He did a great job pumping the stocks coming in, and then cratered them after the election. So there's a lot going on there, but the article that I was reading was all rumor and innuendo, whatever. Nobody's saying anything, but according to unnamed sources, it's him being, he's stirring too many pots.
Yeah.
And is becoming a distraction for the Republican Party. And he's more of a liability. And they are, I think a lot of them are probably questioning, and this is just me questioning, they got elected. They are the people's choice to run the
Hmm.
government,
Hmm.
whether it's the president or a congressperson. And Elon Musk is the one that everybody's talking about. And if
Hmm.
you are a, Republican who wants to, or any politician who
That wants to get reelected.
wants to get reelected, you want to take credit for the good stuff, and
Yeah.
you don't, and you want to get rid of somebody who's doing the bad stuff. So Elon Musk, we all knew it from day one. Elon Musk was going to be the scapegoat.
Hmm.
Like this was never a long term thing. His ego is too big. Trump's ego is too big. It's
Hmm.
never going to work out. You're not going to end 4 years and those two are shaking hands and being best friends. It's just not. Somebody's going to get pushed in front of a bus and it ain't going to be the president. So
Yeah.
there you go.
I'm not too concerned about Elon. He'll land on his feet somehow.
He'll land in a big bag of cash. He's gonna do fine. Him and his 14 kids that have all disowned him.
That we know of.
Yes, I guess I've not all disowned him, but we'll go on to something else.
Anyway.
Something that is a little another topic that's kind of heavily charged. Like a couple weeks ago, you
Yeah.
talked about BYD and 1,000 kilowatt charging,
Hmm.
and
We thought, wow, that's a
yeah,
big deal.
that's huge. You know, how fast can you set your car on fire with that? That let me do that. So apparently Zeekr said, "Hold my beer," or
Yeah.
whatever. What's the
Yep,
big
they have
Chinese
beer
brand?
in China.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Hold my Tsingtao.
is that what it is? I
I don't,
honestly
I
have
don't
zero
even
idea
know.
what the equivalent beer would be. But what are they doing? 1,200 kilowatt charging?
Yeah.
When does this end?
Uh, Good question. And
Or is this even a start? Is this even a reality? Is this
well,
even necessary for anything outside of giant 18 wheelers?
so this gets back to the whole, you know, I think this is kind of philosophical on a certain level, is if we should be pursuing this kind of holy grail of reducing EV charging to time parity with filling up with at a gas station. And I feel the industry's been trying to chase that for a long time. And I think the pursuit of it has been good in kind of prompting technological progress and faster charging relatively. But I I don't I don't even know if really that's what if we necessarily need to get it to that point. So, but again, whole other episode. I'm not going to go down that too deep down that rabbit hole. But effectively, this is kind of along the lines of that. So, this had a few, not quite as many details as the BYD announcement because they just kind of showed the concept of it. So I guess the Shanghai Auto Show is
They
going
have
to
a
be
concept of a plan?
concept of a plan. Yeah. Um, so I guess the Shanghai Auto Show is going to be later this month, and they're going to supposedly reveal more details. They didn't announce whatever cars will be able to support this technology, whereas BYD, when they showed theirs, they said, "Oh yeah, these vehicles will be able to utilize this, take full advantage of the system." Zeekr hasn't said anything like which specific models will be able to use this or a new model that will. So, um, the I think the noteworthy thing about both the BYD and the Zeekr announcement is these are in the context of passenger cars, of light duty EVs, as opposed to Class 8 heavy trucks. So, gosh, it's probably I want to say like 2 years ago when we had on Rustem and Oleg from Charin
Hmm.
to talk about the megawatt charging system. So this level of charging has been talked about for a while in the context of heavy trucks, because it's kind of a necessity to move to electrify that segment because you ain't turning, you ain't earning,
Yep.
so to speak. So it's kind of a necessity for that. For passenger cars, it's more of a convenience or kind of a ooh ah kind of feature. So I mean, I don't have to beat a dead horse about this. China is kind of, I would say, pretty much in the lead for developing and advancing EV technology. So they're really pushing this. They're getting a lot of support from the Chinese government for a variety of reasons. most of which are kind of self-apparent. So the big deal about this is they're saying this is going to be for everyday passenger cars that, normal people can buy, not, big, trucks.
I wish that I knew enough about electricity and how charging works. But I wonder if this is like a number. So like you can have, I've been saying 800 uh
800 volt.
800 volt architecture is kind of the way to
Hmm.
go, and you can get faster charging, and 350 kilowatt charging is
Hmm.
good. But then you see some companies that really work, like Tesla's one of them, really works at a 400 volt
Hmm.
system, and they can actually charge pretty good. So if you get
Hmm.
a good curve, you can make a 400 volt car charge somewhat comparable to an 800 volt car that
Hmm.
they've not put that into.
Hmm.
But you can, what you do get, from what I understand, is if you've got an 800 volt car, you can force feed it for a very short period of time,
Hmm.
and you can compensate for certain things. Maybe not a great chart or a great curve, but you can jam 800 volts down its throat, and you can get a quick charge. And I wonder, and then you got to ramp down because you've heated up the battery, and that's where I don't understand how all of this works. But I kind of wonder with like 1200 kilowatt charging, if that's a similar thing. If
Hmm.
they could just go, okay, we'll do 1200 kilowatts for 2.5 minutes, and then we
Hmm.
ramp down, and now you're at 400,
Yeah.
and then we ramp down, and you're at 300, and you're still well above everything else,
Hmm.
but it enabled you to get that initial burst of a ton of mileage very quickly out of the car, which is kind of what everybody wants.
Hmm.
Is you don't need a full charge in an EV, you need to get where you're going. And if you can get that burst where you get a quick
Hmm.
200 miles in 5 minutes, that's great. Even though you're only half full, whatever it is,
Hmm.
it gets you to the next thing, and it gets you, so it makes road trips faster. So that's great. I don't know. Sure. Let's see where it goes. Let's see who catches on fire. What's next? University of Michigan researchers claim they figured out how to overcome slow charging in cold weather. Global warming. Done.
Hmm.
Is that not is that not the solution? Just pollute more. We get rid of EVs. We just keep gas powered cars on the road until
Hmm.
everywhere's 110 degrees,
Hmm.
and then we switch to EVs, and cold weather charging fixed.
Hmm.
You're welcome.
Well, okay, that was a unexpected hot take, but ah, um, no, this potentially could be pretty significant because this has been an issue with EV charging for a while. Is they don't like cold weather. It slows down the charging process significantly to the point where anecdotally I've heard in really cold climates, if you're just doing level one charging, like especially like outdoors, it will you basically don't it basically just kind of maintains the charge. You don't it's not a net plus. So basically all the energy on like 120 volt is just dedicated to keeping the battery warm. You don't actually gain charge. You know what I mean by
Yeah.
that?
No, there's been a few
Yeah.
YouTubers
Hmm.
that have deep frozen cars essentially
Hmm.
during massive winter storms and then gone to charge them, and some of them don't charge. Like you
Yeah,
plug them
either
in,
they don't charge or it's just
yeah, it takes a
it
long
basically
time to get them.
just
Yeah.
maintains it's
Yeah.
basically like a real fancy battery tender
Yeah.
for the EV battery.
So how are they going to fix the problem? I mean, they're not going to do my patented method uh, of global warming. They apparently
Yeah.
want to do something else. So what is the University of Michigan
So
suggesting?
so their approach, which and again, I'm sure they still have to do a lot of validation and testing to see how this holds up over time. But what they did is it was actually a two-step process. So they put a special coating on lithium borate carbonate, I guess, 20 nanometers thick, and they actually like shot like laser holes in these layers um, with for creating little holes. So I guess that allows the lithium ions to kind of embed fast. Again, I'm not a chemist. I'm not an electrical engineer, so I'm just going off, what the release said. Anyway, so basically, it facilitates faster charging in cold weather, which previously it just like when the temperature is ramped way down, so did the charging rate. And this seems they're claiming a 500% faster charging rate in sub freezing temperatures. I'm sure once it gets to more normal, like 60, 70 Fahrenheit, the
That will,
difference is
yeah.
reduced. But in cold weather, it makes a significant difference.
And that what they're talking about,
So,
and I don't know because I did not read it, but 500% faster charging will be go and watch any of those YouTubers that do this
yeah.
deep freezing of the car, and you will
Hmm.
see it. It's level one would be faster in certain
Hmm. Hmm.
situations if
Or level two or whatever. Yeah.
but when they freeze the car, they plug it into a level three, and it just can't it can't do anything because of the
Hmm.
temperatures. It's not there, and
Hmm.
then it's
Hmm.
got to process through and everything. So if you could go 500% faster than that in that worst case scenario, then that's great. It's
Hmm.
obviously, like you said, it's not going to be 500% faster in Miami. It's
It's
just
probably like a negligible difference in
yeah.
warmer weather, but in
If
cold
if
weather, it
there's a
makes a big
difference,
difference. Yeah.
yeah. And it
So,
may be the kind of
people
thing
in,
where if the
Mhm.
cables are that much more expensive to produce or whatever, that they just simply wouldn't have those cables in areas like Southern California. Just simply wouldn't have those kind of cables, so you never really even experience
I think
a
this is
difference.
more the battery pack itself than the
Oh, is
cables.
this battery pack? I was thinking this
No,
was
this is the
charger cable.
pack. This
Oh,
is like battery chemistry, like
I wasn't paying
structure.
attention at all. You're talking about batteries?
Yeah.
Whatever. Pay no attention
No,
to me.
no. So, so like Norway, Minnesota, Michigan, all those, colder climates, I'm sure they'd be pretty jazzed about this. So, and it makes sense it was Michigan because I
Because
know.
it's
So
cold there.
it's cold there. I've said this before, like I never understood the excitement about heated steering wheels, but of course I've never lived in Michigan. But it seems like everyone I've met from Michigan, that's like their favorite feature. So,
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I've been in cold areas, the steering wheel thing's awesome. So does this turn into something where they would only sell? I mean, they'd have to put this in all cars then. If this is based on the battery pack and a manufacturer were to do something
mhm.
like this, they'd have to do it across the board, or else you'd end up with like a California car that somebody then moves to Michigan and their car's essentially a
You're going
brick.
back to the 80s and 90s when you remember when we had California cars and
That's
49
exactly
state
what I
cars.
was
Yeah.
thinking. Is that you would
Uh,
have because when I moved to California, I
mhm.
couldn't even there was a charge to register. There was a
An
fee to
out of state
register an
car.
out of
Yeah.
state car, and it was more than the value of my vehicle.
So you're like,
That was
screw
why
it.
I
I'm
got
just
rid of the
gonna
car
get
and I
rid of it.
bought something else
Yeah.
because it was going to double the price of my vehicle if I paid the fee.
So my guess is with this, depending on how they can scale the technology, if they can figure the industrial process to do this at, a scale level relatively cheaply, that this will be in all EVs. That this is a technology, yeah, because I don't think they're gonna, I mean, they might have region specific, but depend, especially with, the whole tariff situation about different suppliers and so forth. But it seems to me this is a win-win regardless of, whether you're in Miami or in Detroit, is if they can get the industrial process to a point where this can be done cheaply at scale, um, and it doesn't have any, negative effects over time, on battery
Like
you know,
everything leaks out of those little
yeah,
holes.
battery or whatever, battery degradation or life. And, they validate that through testing. They're like, hey, this is solid. It holds up over time. This is good. This potentially could, pretty much be in all battery EVs.
That said, we see these kind of things
Yeah.
all the time come out of universities. And I've never read a press release where Hyundai or Ford or anybody has said, this came from this university technology, whatever. I mean, I assume they end up licensing it or it just never happens. So
Well, I mean,
take it for what it is.
yeah, I mean, it's cool, significant if true. I'm not doubting their findings, but it's one thing to do it once in a lab. It's another thing to do it millions of times at scale,
Yeah.
you know, and have it be reliable, not have any nasty side effects. So,
Yep.
we'll see. We'll keep an eye on this.
Speaking of
I'm
nasty side effects, Tesla's,
okay. I don't know where you're going with
I
this,
don't know,
but
there's nasty side effects to things that have been going on at Tesla, I guess. But that's got nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about. So, a UFO themed supercharger in Roswell, New Mexico. Who would have ever thought?
wow, mind blown.
Is there anything else with this, or is this just
No, I think that's pretty much it.
A computer. In the images. I don't even know. I don't think these images are actually. There'll be a link in the show notes.
I don't know.
I don't,
The image I saw, it was like, okay, to me it wasn't campy enough. If you're gonna go like full alien, go full alien. Like flying saucer, little green man, all that. This is just kind of, I don't even know how I'd describe it. Just like kind of this Tron looking kind of wing canopy. I don't know.
yeah, I. The only what I do like about this though is that
Hmm.
it is continuing the like EV corridors, the
Hmm.
getting through into areas that are not exactly well populated.
Hmm.
I've done many cross country trips in
Hmm.
this country, not in EVs.
Hmm.
And I always like look up, could I have done this in an EV? And in several instances, the answer was no.
Just no.
You could not have done it. Or you could have done it, but you would have had to have stopped overnight somewhere or found a
Hmm.
campground somewhere
Hmm.
or whatever it was. So I like that it's a continuing build out, assuming that there wasn't already a supercharger right there and that they're just building a fake UFO on
I
top
don't
of it.
know. I
What I
mean, they're also doing that diner theater thing in Hollywood too.
yeah, is
Supposedly it's
that
almost done, I
yeah,
think.
that's got to be nearly done by now. I keep
Yeah. Anyway,
like that's been a long time
hopefully
coming.
it's not probably right now it's got a bunch of protesters, but
So
anyway.
Ford is doing employee pricing for everyone to counter effect the tariffs.
Yes, I think the last time they did this was right after or right around COVID, I want to say. Or was it 08, 09? I can't remember.
So
Yeah. This isn't
help me
totally
with
unprecedented, but
with the economics of this. If they can afford to sell at employee pricing for all people and still make money, why not just lower the price of the
I think
car or absorb the price of the tariff?
my thought on this is a short-term kind of confidence boosting measure to kind of reassure customers that we're intending to buy a car that all of a sudden are getting nervous from the news. They're like, hey, we'll still honor, you know, our pricing, even though on some models that are made in Canada or Mexico, it's could go up significantly in terms of the cost to Ford. But they say, we're going to hold it tight for now.
So I
Um,
guess
yeah.
maybe what this shows, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
if I read these tea leaves right, does this show that Ford thinks these tariffs are so temporary that they can just absorb the cost by doing a promo like this without saying that they're absorbing the cost? They're just going to say, hey, it's employee pricing. You're all family, which, that's what the commercials are going to say because
Yeah.
they always
Yeah.
do. You're all family. So join become the friends and family deal. And they think that these tariffs are going to they're going to vanish in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, and they can
Yeah.
just absorb the cost. Because if these tariffs are in for 4 years,
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, they make a
Well,
lot of
that's
money, but that's a lot of money to lose if you're just absorbing
yeah.
the
This
tariff
is
costs.
the thing. The thing is with the tariffs is nobody is exactly sure what the long term strategy is with this. I don't even know if Trump knows. I think the consensus that I'm starting to kind of hear repeated is the whole art of the deal thing, and kind of this chaos theory of just like you know totally get your adversaries or opponents like totally disoriented and off base, and kind
Which
of
is
assert
his.
your strategic dominance, and they'll come to you and say, hey, let's make a deal.
So this is, and it's
Yeah.
legitimately the way Trump debates.
Hmm.
Is his debating style is an actual style of debating where you
Hmm.
overwhelm with lies
Hmm.
to the point that the your opponent cannot fight back because there is too much
Hmm.
incorrect information coming at them that you get overwhelmed. It is a legitimate style of debate.
Hmm.
And that is what Trump does. He just makes stuff up
Hmm.
and then makes up the next thing and makes up the next thing and just keeps talking, talking, talking,
Hmm.
talking. You
Hmm.
can never go back and you can never fact check him during the debate.
Hmm.
And so your opponent just looks like a dweeb. And
Hmm.
this is what he's always done. And it the tariffs seem very similar of him
Hmm.
just saying, well, you get a tariff and you get a tariff and you get a tariff.
Yeah,
And wait,
even
no,
the
you don't.
penguins.
And then this and then this and then this is on and this is off. And it's just this mass confusion
Hmm.
that maybe Ford is saying, well, we're so confused.
Yeah.
Can't confuse
Well,
our
no, I
customers,
mean,
I guess.
the thing for Ford specifically is two of their best-selling models, the Maverick and the Mach-E, are made in Mexico. So assuming, and I don't know to the degree that they're USMCA compliant or whatever, because supposedly that's kind of the loophole or whatever. Anyway, and just this drumbeat of kind of doom and gloom from the news that they're afraid that's going to have a chilling effect on sales. So they're like, "Hey, we got your back. If you were thinking of getting a new Ford, come on in. We'll give you a good deal." I think that's, plain and simple. I think that's kind of the play here.
They're just trying
So
to ride it out and hope the storm is short,
yeah,
I
like
guess.
I think every other company right now.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Do you have anything to say about Hyundai Ioniq 6 getting a facelift? Because I've looked at the pictures and I don't know. I don't really like it, but I don't like a lot of change. I want everything
so
to
so
stay the
you like
same.
you like the predecessor better than this one?
Yes, but that's not saying a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent about it. I mean, yeah. So it's gone from like bigger headlights to like a really skinny, thin little LED strip. So that's kind of a look now, I guess. I'm kind of whatever. On the back end, they've gone. So the original Ioniq 6 kind of had a double decker spoiler, and I can't remember if you like it or not. I thought it was a little busy looking.
I
Um,
liked it in the original images because it had like a
mhm,
Porsche 911 look to
mhm,
it.
mhm.
But in reality, it just missed a little bit. That whole car just missed a little bit in its looks.
Yeah, yeah. So they've gone down to just a single spoiler. So they've gotten rid of the kind of double decker look. So it's a little more streamlined. I'm kind of indifferent about it. I'm going to keep saying this until they actually do it. The one I'm really holding out for is the Ioniq 6 shooting brake or wagon. I think that would be really cool. I'm still hoping they'll do one. I don't know,
Yeah, if they
but
do it, it's not coming to America.
probably not. Probably Europe and Asia only.
Because what was I reading?
So,
Like the sales on this is not doing, they're not doing fantastic on the
yeah,
Ioniq 6.
it's kind of insignificant. I think the volume play with their EVs, other than like, the Kona EV is the Ioniq 5.
Mhm.
That's doing pretty well.
Yeah. The
Um,
sedans just aren't,
they're kind of not a thing really
yeah.
anymore. So the consensus is they didn't announce specs on this, but they think the specs on this updated model are pretty much going to mirror the Ioniq 5. So slightly bigger battery pack capacities. They did show an inline model. So, we're talking about in sport and like,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Hmm.
um, so, but they say an actual N, so like 600 plus horse model is probably coming, but they didn't show that yet. So anyway,
I kind of view the Ioniq 6 as it's kind of like the Polestar to me. Is it the Polestar 2? Is that
how
the
so?
sedan?
Yeah.
These are going to be great cars to pick up in the used market because they're not going to have any resale value.
Hmm.
They're very solid cars. All the specs are what you'd want them
Hmm.
to be,
But not
but
super popular.
but they're
Yeah.
just not super popular. Nobody really buys them. They're people that then go to sell them. They're just going to have to
Hmm.
dump them for pennies on the dollar, and
Yeah.
that's when people like me come in, and
Well,
I'd
as
end
a
up
Model
driving it.
3 owner in the current climate, that hits a little close to home. But anyway,
Yeah, no, the
that's why I
Model
don't
3
plan
is
on
a
selling it anytime soon.
yeah, it's similar, but
Yeah.
not quite exactly similar deal. So speaking of back to Tesla, remember the range extender for the Cybertruck?
Oh, that takes up half the bed. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a third of the bed. It I don't remember. It was supposed to get it to like when they released the specs on the Cybertruck, it was supposed to do like 500 miles, and then they
Yeah.
released the actual Cybertruck and it did like 250 miles. And so they were trying to get it up there, and so they were like, "Oh, we'll do the range extender." And I believe at the time, in fact, I know at the time,
Hmm.
at least one of us, if not both of us, were like, I wonder if this will actually ever happen.
Hmm.
This giant battery pack that you buy that there's no way you could lift it in. You probably have to go
Hmm.
to a
Service center, and they'd
service
have to do a
center,
crane and just.
drop it in. And the only way that I could see it potentially working is if you could lease it for or rent it for a month or something. So if
Hmm.
you're doing a big road
Hmm.
trip, then you could go and do that. But the downside to it is if you rented it for a month and you put this in the back of
Hmm.
your truck, and you were doing a big road trip, where do you put all the stuff that you're taking on your road trip?
Yeah.
So it had many problems. Well, apparently this is no longer on the configurator, so
Yeah.
you can't order it. They never delivered one as far as anybody's aware.
Hmm.
And it's just another thing that goes to them
Missing it with the Cybertruck.
missed it with the Cybertruck and promising products that don't happen, that are
Hmm.
there to help prop up a stock price that they know full well
Yeah.
that this is not going to happen. They knew full well that the
Yeah.
Roadster wasn't going to happen. They knew full well that the Semi was not going to happen for a while, and that the
Hmm.
Cybertruck wasn't going to happen for all of this. They knew,
Hmm.
and they still said what they said. And then it's like, oh, Elon, oh, he just says stuff. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's just another example of them. I don't think it's before I would give them the benefit of the doubt.
Hmm.
Now I look at it as malicious. There's too
Wow.
many of these.
Yikes.
These are on purpose to prop up a stock price.
Well,
It's the same thing with Optimus being $30,000 when it comes out. No.
no, well, we could do a whole episode on my theory about the Optimus. But anyway,
These are all
um,
calculated stock pumps.
I'm not going to go there. I will say this about the Cybertruck. I'm very conflicted about it because in some ways it truly is revolutionary in some aspects technologically.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think the technological sophistication and uniqueness of it is overshadowed by its weird styling. And I don't think this story helps kind of boost the Cybertruck narrative.
Does
if
anybody
there is
talk
one.
about the 48 volt
No,
battery in the thing?
just nerds like us.
Yeah, you're exactly right on some of the things that they've done with this.
Mhm,
And what gets the headlines is the body panels they use the wrong Elmer's glue,
mhm.
and the thing falls
The
apart.
bumper falls off, and
Yeah, those are the things. But there are things in the Cybertruck that will translate to cheaper production of things
mhm,
like the Model 3 or Model Y or
mhm.
the
Steer by wire. Yeah.
the Rebovan, if that ever happens. Things like that
Mhm,
that this was a test bed for.
mhm.
And instead I don't know, they said that this was going to be mass
But
market,
I
and they
mean,
always knew it was never going to be.
yeah,
They
I mean,
always,
but Tesla's not alone. There have been a lot of automakers that have done at the time very revolutionary or advanced technologies in a model that really never caught on with the general public and was never like a big hit. But it kind of, I don't know, served as kind of a test case for a certain technology. Anyway, enough of that.
so I guess
Um,
what we can do is we can look back with the Cybertruck. It's
mhm,
as far as a modern mainstream massive success, complete failure.
mhm,
Like that story's been written. It's not
mhm.
turning around. They're not suddenly going to sell 1 million of these things next year. It's not going to happen. This thing will eventually quietly disappear. And that's going to be its story. But the story will continue
And the technologies.
over time. And
Yeah.
we may look back in 5 years, 8 years, 10 years and go, wow, without the Cybertruck, we would not have this.
Yeah.
And
I think
this,
ultimately that's going to be the story of the Cybertruck.
yeah, it was a test bed that was a failure at its time,
Mhm,
but because it was at a company that was propped up by the Model Y,
mhm,
it could afford to have it. And
mhm,
companies are going to have missteps. That's fine. You
mhm.
know, it's as long as you've got other mainstream
Yeah.
products that can get you by.
Talk about a company that was a misstep. And you really seemed eager to talk about this.
I did, and I don't really have much time to talk about it. Trevor Milton, ex-CEO and co-founder of Nikola Motors,
Yeah.
went to jail. I
Mhm.
think, was he actually in jail or was he not in jail yet?
I think it was like house arrest. I
And
don't
it
know if
was
he actually did time in the big house, but
it was largely the big thing that got the attention was him rolling a supposedly hydrogen powered 18-wheeler down a hill and then
mhm.
filming it and then saying, look, we've got these running, when the reality is they just had gravity on their side. They didn't really have any actual anything. And I guess based on that, and there must have been plenty of other stuff, he was thrown out of the company. Did he have to give up his stocks? He gave up. There was a lot of stuff he gave up, and then
Yeah,
was
he's still
found
not
guilty of
poor
fraud.
from what all I've heard.
For 1 year at least with Nikola, they had like $1 million in revenue, and it was all like the solar panels that Nikola installed on Trevor's house. That was the complete revenue. It was
It was
great
bizarre.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, continuing in bizarre times, Trump has completely pardoned the guy.
Yeah. And what's funny is that the press conference, Trump seemed completely clueless about Milton or everything that went on. And he just said he got a very raw deal, you know, and just kind of went blathered on about, how he got shafted, but he seemed to have no idea about the background of it. So whatever.
So you said that there was a connection.
I don't quote me on this, but supposedly I think Pam Bondi's brother is his defense attorney or something like that.
Who's Pam Bondi?
The attorney general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. All
So it's
right.
like a kind of a
So that's one.
Washington insider
Yeah. So
connection
that's
thing.
that's one conspiracy theory. Another one is that I'll just make up is while Elon Musk is on the way out,
Mhm.
he also has Trump's ear a little bit and might have said, you know what, this stuff is kind of normal, the way that we deal with the things that you promote, the way you do things in the automotive industry and the EVs
Mhm.
is Trevor didn't actually do anything that's not kind of standard for practice for other companies that are trying to sell a product. So, Mr. Trump, you might want to reconsider this and
I don't.
equalize it. That's one conspiracy theory.
So
Um,
you think Musk was actually advocating for to him to go easy
oh,
on Milton?
no, I'm saying that could be a conspiracy theory.
Oh,
Because there happens to
I don't
be
see what the motivation would be because I think
potential
Musk.
future prosecution along similar lines.
Yikes. Okay.
After enough what comes to roost, and roosters come to roost, enough cows come to roost, whatever. There's that. My problem with this is, and I hate when people use something as, well, this sends a message. Like
Hmm.
Elizabeth Holmes has been found guilty with
Hmm.
Theranos
Hmm.
and sentenced to 11 years.
Hmm.
And that they have tried to get her sentence reduced and whatnot.
Hmm.
And what keeps coming back is this sends a message to the tech
Hmm.
elite that we will not tolerate this. So the
Hmm.
legal system, I don't necessarily agree that you need to send a message. I don't think you need unequal treatment within the law.
Hmm.
You don't
Hmm.
need somebody who goes to jail for 11 years and
Hmm.
somebody else who does the same thing goes to jail for 4 years or
Hmm.
1 year or whatever it is. Equal treatment across the board.
Hmm.
Have that as the thing that says don't defraud people, and here's the thing. You don't
Hmm.
need one person as your scapegoat. And but did Trevor get too much of a, was he a scapegoat? So that's that side. But the flip side is
Yeah.
if you do believe that there needs to be an example, you
Hmm.
have now taken away the one example from the EV industry, EV/hydrogen industry, where
Hmm.
there were a lot of companies that came up that were just doing cash grabs at a certain period of time.
Hmm.
There was a lot of fraud that went on
Hmm.
with people just creating a CG graphic and then,
Oh, we're launching this new
yeah,
company.
and then
Yeah.
people invest because they think it's kind of like with cryptocurrency and stuff. You
Hmm.
ride on the coattails,
Hmm.
and your purpose is to defraud. And if Trevor Milton was actually, if his intent was to defraud people, and you believe that there should be examples set, and he was
Hmm.
the example, you have now taken away that example because who else got prosecuted in any of that? You know,
Yeah.
he was the example. He was the one that would stop you from doing something like that. And now the
Hmm.
president has said, you know what, that's cool. You can lie to your investors. That's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
So I'm arguing both sides of that because I don't believe you should set an example with one person because that is their life and we only get one life. But if you believe that there should be an example set, you have now taken the example that you have set and you said, it's cool though. Roll your trucks down the hill and lie to your investors.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it at that because I could not keep up with your line of
it went in every.
argument with that.
No, I can argue both sides of it, but in neither way do I view this as good. I
No.
don't. I guess we get into bigger issues of should there be pardons or should he reduce sentences, and you know, it's should he be in jail?
Anyway.
Should Trevor be in jail?
I think he should do some time at least. I mean, I think what he did was pretty obviously fraud. I mean, maybe, club fed for like, 18 months or something, but he should have at least a little skin in the game, I think, but whatever. It's water under the bridge at this point.
Yeah, no, you can't turn it back.
Yeah.
All right, I've got to go.
All right.
I don't know if it came up on the audio, but I had an alarm set, and that's to remind me that I have children. So I
right.
need to go and do something with them, I guess. Everything we talked about, if there was a link and we were referring to an article, those links will be in the show notes. You can find the show notes in the podcast on our website and on youtube.com/@thewaltcar with the episode link thing. You can subscribe to us everywhere. You can share us on social media everywhere. We're on some of that social media. You could tag us. I don't really care if you do. It's fine. I mean, I guess it helps. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but spreading the word helps more than anything. thewaltcar.com/store. Buy a t-shirt, buy a hat, buy a water bottle. I would say email us, hello@thewaltcar.com.
Just make a YouTube comment.
Yeah, just YouTube comments are great. And Trevor Milton, go to thewaltcar.com/advertise, and your next venture can be our sponsor.
And we'll send you a shirt.
And I'll send you a free shirt. I'll make one with like the Walk Car going down a hill.
Or I think we should send him the hydrogen shirt.
Oh yeah, there's hydrogen. Hydrogen is the future and it always will be. We have that shirt, and I'll send him that one if he comes on and advertises for at least what are our shirts, like $35-$40, something like that.
For now.
I need
Maybe
the sponsorship.
Next week they might be 50. So.
Yeah, you can't tell. I was wearing a shirt the other day that was a Canada shirt, and it was made in China. And I'm like, man, that shirt, if that was made in China, sent to Canada, and then imported into America, God, that'd be like a $400 shirt right now, wouldn't it? It's insane.
Anyway,
Okay,
tune
so
in to see what we talked about yesterday.
yeah, so next week we talked about a bunch of stuff. Tune in, and then in 2 weeks' time we're back. But don't ignore next week's. It's a fun episode. I'll see you in a couple of weeks then.
All right.